Before I begin, I ask that you not blame the messenger for the discomfort the message may bring. What I'm going to discuss is the state of the U.S. economic system, capitalism, and the crisis it currently faces. This is the deepest trouble I've seen in my lifetime, and I've been around long enough to see a lot. Many of us are in denial, unable or unwilling to face a reality that is increasingly grim. Denial, as my psychotherapist wife reminds me, is not just a river in Egypt, it's a psychological defense mechanism. It's what we do when what's in front of us is too frightening to acknowledge. And unfortunately, denial is the one thing our political, economic, and cultural elites all seem to share. My goal is to break through that denial and provide a clear view of what's happening. I don't claim to be infallible, but what I offer is based on decades of studying U.S. capitalism from within, growing up in Youngstown, Ohio, and observing this system my entire life. To understand where we are, we have to start with history. Empires rise and fall. The Greek, Roman, British, Persian, Egyptian, Chinese, all follow a pattern. They emerge, grow, reach a peak, then decline and disappear. The British Empire, for example, spanned centuries and crumbled following wars and internal contradictions. Out of its decline, the American empire rose, especially after World War I. U.S. capitalism resolved major contradictions during the 19th century, such as the abolition of slavery. The Civil War, brutal as it was, ended a bizarre dual system of a capitalist North and a slaveholding South. From 1870 to 1970, the U.S. economy experienced a remarkable century of growth. Workers' real wages steadily increased and profits rose even faster. This dual rise made America feel exceptional. It wasn't just a slogan, it was backed by real material progress, though largely for white workers. This period created the illusion of permanent upward mobility. Americans came to believe that prosperity was their birthright, that the country was uniquely blessed, even divinely favored. But when warning signs of decline emerged, the myth of exceptionality blinded people to the truth. A turning point came around 1970. That's when real wages, the amount workers can buy with their pay, stopped rising. Adjusted for inflation, the average American worker today earns roughly what they did in 1978. For a nation that had grown used to consistent wage gains, this was a profound rupture. Yet it was met with silence. No debate, no national reckoning. The country simply pretended it wasn't happening. To compensate, households relied on two key pillars: more labor and more debt. Women previously confined to domestic roles entered the workforce en masse, not as a feminist revolution but as an economic necessity. Families needed two incomes to survive, and then came debt. Banks, which previously avoided lending to ordinary consumers, discovered profit in widespread credit. Credit cards became common, mortgages were expanded with government backing, auto loans, then student loans, debt piled on debt. The result is a society propped up by exhausted labor and unsustainable borrowing. The stress-fractured families, divorce rates soared. American women now consume more psychotropic medication than any other group in the world. Not because of personal weakness, but because of intolerable pressure. The fantasy of endless growth became a nightmare of overwork, anxiety, and debt. We became pioneers not in wagons heading west, but in credit-fueled survival. Meanwhile, the wealth gap exploded. Over the last 40 years, wealth has been radically redistributed upward. The top 10%, 1%, and especially the top 0.1% became vastly richer. Names like Gates, Musk, and Buffett are idolized. Why? Because our culture is built to glorify them. This shift wasn't accidental, it was systemic. Tax laws were rewritten to favor corporations and the wealthy. Democrats and Republicans alike enabled it. The pace varied, but the direction remained the same. Even more damaging than tax changes was the shifting balance between capital and labor. For a century, workers' wages rose with productivity. Since 1970, that link broke. Workers have become more productive than ever, thanks to technology and automation, but their wages have stagnated. The gains now go almost entirely to the employer class, a tiny minority. This creates an economy where workers produce more, earn the same, and survive by borrowing. That's not sustainable. Eventually, the debt becomes unpayable. And that moment came in 2008 with the financial crisis. It was a warning, and like most warnings, it was ignored. Even now, inequality worsens. Then came COVID, followed by inflation and rising interest rates. Blow after blow to a working class already stretched to its limits. History gives us a chilling parallel. Germany in the early 20th century. After World War I, Germany faced brutal reparations, then hyperinflation, then the Great Depression. Even the best educated, most productive working class in Europe couldn't withstand that onslaught. In 1932, desperate and broken, they turned to fascism. We're seeing echoes of that here: economic strain, political scapegoating, and widespread denial. But while Russia is often painted as America's main adversary, the real emerging power is China. Economically, China is already on par with the US in terms of GDP and far surpasses it in growth rate. It has overtaken the US in multiple high-tech sectors. The trade war launched under Trump failed. China remains strong and is increasingly building global alliances, especially with countries alienated by the US. Our political class, trapped in the logic of empire, responds not with introspection but with aggression. The war in Ukraine, while tragic on its own, is part of a broader geopolitical struggle. It's about weakening Russia, China's key ally. Sanctions were supposed to crush Russia. They didn't. Russia found other buyers for its oil and gas: China, India, and others. Meanwhile, the world is slowly moving away from the US dollar as the global currency. That shift alone threatens the core of America's global economic dominance. Yet still, we deny. We act as if the post-1-2 order is permanent. But it isn't. The United Nations vote on Ukraine revealed that many nations no longer align with the US. We're not the uncontested superpower anymore. Domestically, the consequences of inequality are social unraveling. Crime, depression, family collapse, political extremism, all symptoms of a deeper sickness. And in desperation, we turn to scapegoats. Immigrants, for instance, are absurdly blamed for our economic struggles. 10 million undocumented immigrants did not cause the dysfunction of a $21 trillion economy. That's not policy, that's fantasy. Young people see the truth. They know they're inheriting a broken system. Gallup polls show that the majority of Americans under 35 now prefer socialism to capitalism, not because they understand socialism, but because they see capitalism failing them. That should shake us. But again, denial prevails. The US has repeatedly waged wars, from Korea to Vietnam to Iraq to Afghanistan, and lost. Now we are flirting with another global conflict, this time with China. The US Navy circles China's waters, not the other way around. Our military posturing isn't defense, it's provocation. If we don't face the reality of our decline, we risk even more catastrophic outcomes. Just like Britain eventually accepted a diminished role and adapted, the US must come to terms with China's rise. That doesn't mean surrender, it means cooperation, coexistence, and humility. We can learn from each other, but the longer we deny the obvious, the more dangerous the consequences. Change will not come from the corporations or the wealthy. They benefit too much from the current system. If change happens, it will be driven by the working class, those who bear the burden, who fight the wars, who pay the taxes. But for that to happen, the veil of denial must be lifted. Marx once said that the capitalist class will destroy itself. The question is, will we let it take us down with it? If you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss future updates on global economics and geopolitics.